Hey, my name's Justin and welcome back to 65 Drums. Today I'm doing my first impressions on the Roland TD-27KV2. Now this is a mid-gen refresh over the regular TD-27KV that first launched back in 2020. So we're going to take a look at the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, what the competition's like, and if this drum set might be right for you or if you should look at something else. That's coming up. But first, today's video is brought to you by EdrumCenter.com. If you're shopping for a new drum set, go check out EdrumCenter first. They're a drum store based in Tennessee that just focuses on electronic drums. They got a very knowledgeable staff that can answer your questions or even build up a custom drum set full of different parts for your needs. Go check out the discount link in the description below. Okay, so first up, we got the size of the drums and the cymbals. The kick drum is a tower design that's got a roughly 5-inch playing surface that can accommodate double pedals of any brand. The snare drum is 14 inches across and about 4.3 inches tall. The toms are 10 inches, there's 3 of them. Crash 1 is 12 inches, Crash 2 is 14 inches, the ride cymbal is 18 inches across, and the hi-hats are a 2-piece 14-inch set. So next up is the hardware. This has got a very standard 4-post drum rack, nothing really crazy going on. There are cymbal boom arms with little ball sockets up top so you can position everything basically where you want. I'd say it's comfortable, but not necessarily what I would consider roomy. On the front of the drum rack, there is enough space, it's wide enough and tall enough to accommodate larger bass drums. So if you want to buy something like a KD-180L, you can do that. The most important thing to keep in mind though is that it doesn't come with the hi-hat stand or the snare drum stand included with the drum set. So you have to buy that stuff separately. This drum set comes with, you guessed it, the TD-27 drum module. It can support about 12 pads and then more if you use cable splitters. It has over 700 sounds, 75 kits are pre-built in the box, plus more empty kits so you can create your own. Apparently Roland just released a bunch of new kits on the Roland Cloud, so if you want to set up an account on the Roland Cloud and then put those on an SD card and bring them in, you also have access to other free kits. Moving to inputs and outputs, you get 4 outputs, right and left, and then 2 directs. But thankfully, you can map these however you want. So you can have like kick and snare out of 1 and 2, and then everything else going out of right and left. It's really endless, the possibilities. Just be very careful, because the first time I went to EdrumCenter to record this video, the mapping was off, so I actually had to drive all the way back and then record new playing examples a couple of months later. So that's why this video is a little late coming out, because I wasn't paying attention. Next up, there's a USB port for sending MIDI or 28 channels of audio over USB, which is really, really powerful. You got an SD card slot, Bluetooth MIDI, and Bluetooth audio. You got a foot switch for changing kits with your feet or to drop a virtual clutch on my hi-hat. And then finally, you got the mix input if you don't want to use Bluetooth on your phone and the headphone jack. But of course, the big selling point of Roland modules is the depth of editing that they give you. This doesn't have quite everything that a TD-50X can do, but it does a lot of the important things. So you got an overhead mic simulator, very, very extensive EQ, compression, and transient controls. You can change like the virtual size of the drum, the tuning, the muffling. There's tons and tons of stuff you can do to change your drum sound. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, this drum set is a mid-gen refresh to the original version of the TD-27. In addition to getting the digital hi-hats instead of the VH11 and a larger second crash, the next update, of course, is to the module itself. It is a free update, so if you have an old TD-27, you can make that module on par with this new one. It's just that with the new one, you don't have to download the update and then install it and do all that BS. It's just right there for you. Here's a quick list of the differences on screen, but what really jumps out at you when you just sit down and play this is that the built-in kits do sound better than version 1. Okay, so we got the base of the drum set covered, like the specs and all that stuff. Now let's move ahead and talk about the overall experience of playing the TD-27KV2. Like what sticks out to you as being good and bad and how it compares against the competition, that sort of thing. So first up, this is a compact drum set that gives you a flagship-like experience without quite all the bells and whistles of like something else sort of similar to it in a higher price range, like the TD-50KV2 or the TD-50K2, which is also a more compact kit, but in the flagship realm. The funny thing about playing this drum set is that from a lot of camera angles, it actually doesn't look that cool. It doesn't have much of a video or stage presence looking at it straight on. But if you sit down and play it, it actually does feel substantial. And this is because you got that 14-inch snare drum, you got the 14-inch two-piece hi-hats, you got the 18-inch ride cymbal. And that goes a very long way to making the drum set feel larger than it really is. So it feels substantial, but it doesn't take up a ton of floor space. And for some people that just want a compact drum set that almost gives you that flagship level experience, this really strikes that balance. So speaking of which, let's go over the pads, what I liked and didn't like about them. They really don't have that many flaws. Like the crashes, they're thin, but they have a little bit of flex, so they have some give as you're crashing into them. They're fantastic. The ride cymbal, it doesn't have any sort of flex to it, but it's pretty much the best ride cymbal that money can buy right now. The bell zone is very sensitive, positional sensing tracking, all that stuff. It's a fantastic ride cymbal. And then when it comes to the hi-hats, these are pretty much the best electronic hi-hats that money can buy. You may get a slightly better experience on the TD-50X module because they may have more physical samples assigned to the hi-hats. But as far as like, is this an upgrade over the VH11 hi-hat? Yes, it is a big upgrade over the VH11 hi-hat. It's great to see this on this drum set. I actually have the tom pads on this drum set because they also came on my TD-30K, so those are great tom pads. They're a little small. I do wish that the floor tom was 12 inches, so 10, 10, and 12. But regardless, it's a compact drum set with compact toms. These are very good. The triggering is excellent. The snare drum is pretty much the best snare drum that money can buy right now in the electronic drum realm. It can do positional sensing tracking. I think it can detect multiple types of like the depth of your rim shots. It is crammed full of more sensors than any other electronic snare drum that I know of. And then it does cross stick just by telling that your hand is on the drum head. It has, I think, a static electricity sensor. Quick note about that, you can trick it sometimes where it doesn't realize your hand is sitting on the drum head. That might be a setting, like a threshold thing you may need to adjust, or making sure your entire hand is resting on the drum head when you're doing cross stick. I've noticed that the depth of the cross stick will affect how accurate it is. I also like the 3-ply mesh head on it, which gives it a little bit more of a heavy feel. I wish they would just put 3-ply mesh heads on everything else, but Roland has their stubborn reasons as to why they won't do that. When it comes to the kick drum, on a technical level, it picks up your playing perfectly fine. The playing surface is nice, and it's actually the same center pad that's on the larger kick drums for the most part, but it is a tad small on a drum set of this size. So that is one of the weaknesses of the drum set in my opinion. But on the flip side, for people that just want something portable and they just want a premium experience in a smaller package, well then this is actually a pro for you. But for me, I just wish it was a little bit larger for this price tag. One other thing I can think of is that I'm still disappointed that Roland doesn't include a hi-hat stand and a snare drum stand in the box. In fact, what I've noticed is that the cheaper the drum set, the more free stuff that comes with it. On a drum set of this pricing level, you should just get that included. Yamaha, if you buy DTX10, it comes with those components, so I feel like this drum set should as well. And then on the more abstract level, like, am I enjoying playing this drum set? Which changes from brand to brand. There's some brands that on paper, I feel like I really should enjoy playing the drum set, but for one reason or another, I just am not having a good time. With this drum set, not only is it good on paper, it's also just really fun to play in person. Now, when it comes to the TD-27 module, it's actually pretty darn close to the TD-50 for 90% of people. There will be some edge cases where you need all the extra ports or the balanced XLRs or this exact editing feature that the TD-50 gives you. But for most people, the TD-27 module does pretty much every single thing you could ever want to do and more. It has a ton of sounds, it's got a ton of kits with more on the Roland Cloud that you can download if you get bored. It's got so many editing features that you may never even use, like the ping color of the ride cymbal, or the snare tension of the wires, or shell depth, or just so many things that most people won't even dig into. I also like how, I don't even know quite the right name for this, how crashable all the cymbal sounds are. Like, I can ride into the edge of the ride, just wail on it if I'm playing that kind of music that needs like a big fat sustained cymbal sound that just goes on, and the sound set supports that. One little nitpicky thing is that I feel like the body of the module is a bit too lightweight and plasticky for my tastes. In the next generation, it would also be nice to move away from having a cable snake, because if one cable goes bad, you got to replace the whole snake and the whole wire harness essentially. I wish there were more massive sounding snare drums, just a really nice, large, meaty sounding snare drum that's so popular. Like, we all love a large sounding snare drum. I wish they had more of those inside of the module. And again, you can program shell depth and reverb and sort of, make it happen with tuning and stuff, but it's just something that I would like to hear. I feel like the module is definitely good enough for, practicing. It's definitely good enough for the occasional drum cover. It's definitely good enough for playing live. I still don't think it can go head-to-head against a nice drum plugin though. If you're gonna do client work, if you're recording stems for somebody and you're sending them a link over Dropbox, you're still gonna wanna do MIDI out and then use Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer or Get Good Drums or whatever your drum plugin of choice is. No matter how high Roland cranks the resolution and the detail of their sounds, there's always like an X factor where you're listening to a Roland module. And I don't really know exactly why. I'm not like a data person or anything like that, but drum samples are still best for, really high-end situations. But if you're practicing, if you're playing live, I've heard this module played live, it sounds nice. It's really, really good. It's very solid. But at the end of the day, just listen to the playing samples. If they connect with you, then you know that this module might be right for you. If you listen to the playing samples and you just hate it, you have a gut reaction, well, this drum set isn't for you. So it's really going to be a personal thing for you. So the competition at roughly $3,000 to $4,000 is Yamaha, ATV, F-Note, and Geva. In addition, there's also smaller custom builders like your Drumsticks and Fields and Joe Becky's of the world. Be aware of them as well, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to focus on the 4 mainstream options that are major competitors against the Roland TD-27KV2. So the first option is the Yamaha DTX 8 series. You can buy it in mesh, which is $2,800 in the United States, or $3,300 if you want to buy the TCS version. Having 2 different drum head options, having an excellent sounding drum module, and being able to get different shell colors, there's a lot of things going for this drum set. However, the smaller sizes, the price that they're trying to charge for what they're having, the older cymbals, I feel like I understand why not as many people are buying these drums. Next up is ATV. This gets a little bit complicated because I'm filming this in the middle of a sale, so these prices may shift, and also ATV pricing in Europe, of course, will be different than it is here in the United States. But as of right now, the price match is an ATV Edrum's Basic with a TD-27 module. You can also buy the same thing, but with the 85 module for about $500 less. Or you can buy an expanded version of this, but with the 85 module, and that comes in at $3,700 during the sale right now. I don't think this is a bad alternative. I do think it's kind of like a cross grade though. It's not really an upgrade over the TD-27KV2. You're getting the larger shells. However, I do think the Roland drum set gives you the better snare drum, the better hi-hats, and the better ride cymbal. Next up, we've got F-Note. We got the F-Note 5X for about $200 more. Sorry, $300. Where's my math skills going? I think the 5X is better than the ATV Edrums with a TD-27 module. These drum modules sound very, very natural. However, they are much more dumbed down than the TD-27 as far as editing and as far as sound choice. So this is not as advanced as far as the technology inside of the snare drum and the ride cymbal and the module and all that. However, if you sit down and play an F-Note 5X, I almost promise you will enjoy yourself because this drum set feels great. It's got 2 floor toms. It's got very large cymbals. It's got a splash cymbal over here. The module is very, very simple, but natural sounding. I'd use drum software no matter what kit I buy. It's just a decent alternative to people that want something maybe not quite as advanced, but way nicer looking, a little bit heavier, a little bit larger, and just has a better stage presence or video presence if you're trying to record covers or live streaming. And then there's the Geva G5 Pro 5, which on paper does all the right things. The sizes are on point, it uses Remo 2-ply mesh heads, trigger baskets underneath, the cymbals all have a lot of good ideas built into them. The module itself, by the way, also has a ton of good specs. Inputs and outputs are solid, the number of sounds you get, the editing controls. This drum set does all the right things on paper. But the problem is, when I play Geva drum sets in real life, I generally don't have as good of an experience as when I play a Roland or an F-Note drum set. Geva is not on the same tier, in my mind at least, as Roland and F-Note. That could change in the future, and they're just on generation 1 right now. There's a lot of potential on their end, but that's how I see things at the moment. Okay, so we've gone over a bunch of information. Now let's step back and talk about who should probably buy this drum set and who probably just shouldn't buy this drum set. In my opinion, the kind of person that would really benefit from getting this drum set is somebody who wants a compact drum set that doesn't take up a lot of space, but has a couple of large pads that make it feel like a bigger drum set than it really is. And also somebody who wants to get some of the flagship level features of the TD-50X, but they really cannot afford to buy an $8,000 drum set. They want to keep it in the mid-level of the price range. The person that should not buy this drum set is somebody who's really heavily focused on like stage presence. Like maybe you want to record drum covers or play live occasionally, so you need to have some sort of wood shell to give you some of that authority on stage, let's just say. Well, this drum set does not cater towards that kind of person. For somebody who wants to have a really heavy kick drum that really feels substantial as you're playing, you might want to get a drum set that has an 18-inch, a 20-inch, or a 22-inch kick drum. That's not what this drum set has. The TD-27KV2 is really good for people that love to edit their sounds. They love to tinker, they love to experiment, they love to poke around. This drum set will give you so many features, you can just be lost in there for weeks making adjustments to your tone. Some people would rather go with an F-note module that just has standard, really natural sounds, minimal editing features. You're not really supposed to use the module, actually, if you think about it. You're supposed to just play the drum set and not focus on that. So that's where F-note would come in or ATV would come in. There's a good drum set for every single person out there. The TD-27KV2 does a lot of things right. I can see why it's so popular. I really like this drum set. It may be for you, it may not be for you, just depends on your situation. Keep an eye out for part 2 of this video. We're going to talk about the TD-27KV2 versus its bigger brother, the VD507, because they're kind of the same thing, but in a different skin. I'm going to go over the individual differences and which one may be better for different kinds of people in a separate video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.